Hello, this is Mrs. Schroeder. Welcome back to chemistry, talking about ionic compounds. Today we are going to learn how to name ionic compounds and how to write formulas for ionic compounds. We're going to focus specifically on the simple ones today, simple binary compounds. We'll talk about the rest of these as we get later in the chapter. The way to recognize a simple binary compound, or simple binary ionic compound, is it's a metal and a nonmetal. And the metal is always first. The way I would name this is simply the name of the metal with the element name, and then I use the nonmetal and I change the ending to IDE, just like we practice with when we're working on the names of ions. So for example, the first one, NaBr. Na is sodium, so sodium, not sodium ion now, just sodium. And once it combines with the bromine, we change bromine to bromide, so we call this compound sodium bromide. The next one, calcium oxide. I recognize that calcium is a metal and oxygen is a nonmetal, so I'm going to name it as calcium oxide. And we'll try these others in class to see if you have the hang of it. But it's pretty simple. Pause this if you need to. Make sure that you record how to name these, because they will get harder, believe it or not, and you will want to make sure you know how to do the easy ones. The harder part, though, is when I actually have a name, such as strontium chloride, and I want to figure out what does the compound look like. What do my subscripts look like? Is it simply SrCl? How do I write that? Is it ClSr? Do I have 2s or 3s or anything in my subscripts? So one important thing to notice is that the overall charge in compounds is always 0. So we talked about charges and positive charges, negative charges. Within that compound, within that ion, that crystal complex, it has to have a charge of 0. There has to be a balanced amount of positive and negative charges. So when I want to figure out what the name of, or how to write the formula for this, I'm going to look at, the first thing is to figure out the charge on the metal being the first one. So strontium, if I look at strontium, it has a +2 charge. Look at it on your periodic table, it needs 2 electrons, it's going to lose 2 electrons. The next thing I'm going to do is figure out the charge on the nonmetal being the chloride. Chlorine is going to gain 1 electron, so it's going to have a -1 charge. Next, I'm going to go ahead and write the symbol for the metal, so Sr, followed by the symbol for the nonmetal, Cl. So I'm starting out that way. I'm not done yet. I'm just writing down what I know about it. What I need to do is figure out what the subscripts are by balancing charges to 0. Okay, I'm going to use this thing called find the lowest common denominator of the charges. And if you notice, A is +2 for this one. B is a -1 for this one. The X and the Y come in right here. Sr to the X power, Cl to the Y power. So what are X and Y supposed to be, is the question. If I take 2 for my positive charge, +2, times X, plus B is -1, times Y, and set that equal to 0. And the lowest common denominator in this case would be 2. So in order for 2x plus -1 to equal 0, I have to have Sr to the with one of those. So x has to equal 1, and y has to equal 2. And that gives me the lowest common denominator of 2. 2 times 1 plus -1 times 2 equals 0. So my final formula will be SrCl2. And we'll do some of these in class. I just want to give you one or two real quick to look at to see how to figure these out. Rubidium is a +1 charge. Oxygen is a -2 charge. So when I write this out, Rb and then O, and I figure out, again, -2 and a +1, my lowest common denominator is a 2. But in this case, the rubidium has to have the 2, and the oxygen has 1. If it's a 1, I don't write it, it's implied. Sodium fluoride, sodium's a +1, fluorine is a -1. So when I write that out, it's actually balanced the way it is, NaF. I don't have to write any other subscripts because it's already a +1 and a -1 equals 0. Magnesium is a +2. Oxygen is a -2. In this case, MgO +2 equals -2. Or +2 plus -2 equals 0. So this one's balanced the way it is. I don't need any subscripts. So see if you can go through a couple of these on your own, and we'll talk about these in class tomorrow and try some more. Show you a couple tricks, especially with the calcium nitride has a little trick to it. We'll have to show you how to do that. So try those in class, and we'll see you tomorrow.